everybody, it's me, John Ward, and I'm back with another One Filmmaker, One Film. And today my guest is...
I'm Sean-Michael Argo, the writer of the most recent Jeepers Creepers film, Reborn.
Yes, and thank you for being here. I really do appreciate it.
But
Yeah, this is our first time meeting, so I have a bunch of questions, and it will be the first time I'm learning of all this. So I'm interested in what's going on. So please tell me and the audience out there, how did you get involved in screenwriting? Why did you want to be a screenwriter? I looked you up. It also says producer. So tell us about yourself.
well, it's funny. I went to college, got through college, had, 1,000 different odd jobs and everything. And I ended up falling into the film industry quite by accident. I'm from Arkansas, and I was living in Northwest Arkansas where Walmart has its headquarters. And so any company that wants to deal with them has to have a home office there. And I just happened to get a job as a sales guy for a DVD distributor. And it just went from there. I have a sales background. So I did that for a few years, bounced around to a couple of other companies, and then, just decided I think I'm going to be a film producer. I've always wanted to be a writer, but that was before self-publishing was really an option. And so I'd taken those rejection letters and just built up a wall where I didn't think I was going to do anything creative. And then this movie distribution job showed up, and I saw kind of how movies were made. I got to do some set visits there in Arkansas, which I realize sounds weird, but every now and then they do make some stuff there. But I suppose the advantage for me was being in Arkansas, nobody really does a whole lot there. So me deciding to be a producer, there wasn't anyone to tell me that was crazy. So I just started producing, and from there I learned how to do the screenwriting craft. I picked up how to direct, and so I spent about the next 8 years, kind of off and on, odd jobs doing sales and distribution, and kind of directing and producing my own films until I took a break to do a defense contracting for another 8 years. I seem to move in 8-year blocks, apparently.
Oh, wow, okay.
But while I was doing that, I focused on being a novelist, because by then self-publishing was an option. And after I kind of got done with that phase of my professional career, I got home and I was like, well, I'm kind of done with the military thing. I have some friends making a movie. Maybe I'll go do that. And then I just got addicted a second time. And that one hasn't let go yet. I think when I went back the second time, it was more like, I've had a lot of different jobs and a lot of different departments, and just writing was the one that made me happy. And so when I went back the second time, I did just enough production to survive until I could start making a living doing screenwriting.
Did you...
It's been a very journeyman sort of approach to it.
It sounds like it, yeah. When you were at Walmart, was there one particular thing that just kind of clicked that made you go, oh yeah, I want to do this? I mean, you said you were with distribution,
Boondock Saints, actually.
Really?
Yeah, the company I was working for, we received screeners all the time, and it was known in the business that we had this direct relationship with Walmart, and a company called Indican Pictures had the rights to Boondock Saints, and this was during the time when Harvey Weinstein was telling everyone in the business, don't let that movie die. And this company, Indican Pictures, and they're really successful now, they picked up Boondock Saints and threw a Hail Mary pass at getting this Walmart distributor in Arkansas to pick them up. And I fought really hard because I knew the movie, and it was like, I can't believe that they don't have distribution in Walmart. Are you kidding me? And then just through that, I started talking to a lot of the different people involved with that, the exploitation of that project. And I think that's probably where the bug bit me, was getting to actually talk to producers and talk to, film salespeople that are not just slinging units at Walmart. It was the first real experience of the magic of film.
it's very interesting that with Boondock Saints, because I would say that's the film that destroyed the director's career, but no, the director destroyed his own career.
Yeah, he did it
And
to himself.
yeah, so it's interesting that you picked that film and that director to be influenced by. I take it you've seen the film Overnight.
I love that film. To me, that film
Yeah.
was that, because I came in on more on the producer side, them trying to like figure out, what can we do, how can we make this movie happen, and Indican Pictures, of course, this really independent distribution platform at the time, taking this movie. I mean, to me, it was heroic. It's like everybody's blacklisted, and here's this company that's like, we're going to take this blacklisted movie and try to run it into Walmart for a touchdown. I just so much indie fire and so much indie spirit, and I think that's really where the magic of movies kind of started sparking for me, and I was like, oh, I think this is a game I want to be in, as opposed to the content side where I'm thinking in terms of 90,000 units and net 60 payment terms from Walmart. It's a pretty boring job at the end of the day.
I would imagine so. Because yeah, I own Boondock Saints 1 and 2. I have Overnight. Do you feel, being, since that's the film that influenced you, do you feel that the director should maybe make part 3? Do you think that after a while he got kind of screwed? I mean, like, he's not the same guy.
Yeah, I've worked with people. I'm not going to name names, but I've worked with people that I either liked them in the beginning and ended up changing my opinion, or I didn't like them at first and figured out, oh, that's just your work style. Like, I think everybody is different, and so I have worked with some real divas before, but when they're turning in the quality of work, it's like the diva to quality of work. There's this scale, and as far as the specific director, I don't. It was more the journey of the film than it was the journey of that individual. I think it was more that I became fascinated from the side of, you can have a film that's blacklisted but that fans love. Why isn't that? What is the disconnect between those two things? How. What I thought I was existing on the fringes of the industry, and then to have a film like that show up and realize that no, I happen to be working for a company that everybody wanted it in with, and just finding out just how complicated and interesting and full contact the business is. For example, one of the last weeks I was at the distribution company, I was trying to find other ways to monetize some of these films that we had. And I ended up speaking with a buyer who handled a lot of like blockbuster stuff at the at the time that was all still available. And he was like, I've got to tell you, sir, I'm going to say no to every film that you just pitched me. And it's not because they're not good, but it's because your boss fired me on Christmas Eve 10 years ago. and having him explain to me in just these ice cold, just stone cold killer tone, how he didn't care how good the movies were or how much money those were going to make. And so that was another just like wild lesson for me about just how ego can work in this game. How, it doesn't matter you spent $1 million making the movie, it's worth what someone else is going to pay for it. And where they're at and what their history is. That leads into Jeepers Creepers really well. There are people that will never ever give Jeepers Creepers Reborn a shot because of Victor Salva, and I have to respect that.
I can't, to be honest. I don't, because it's, and I respect what you say and your feelings on it. I just think that it's very unfair to take a property and just destroy it without even knowing what the new is all about. Because I put up on Facebook, I did a post and I had on one side the new Hellraiser poster, and then I had up on the other side the Jeepers Creepers Reborn. And I said, hey, I really enjoyed these movies. You guys should check them out. And down below, people are like, oh yeah, I like the new Hellraiser and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden it got into Jeepers Creepers Reborn, and it's like, pedophiles, how can you like this movie? How can you support these filmmakers? And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. These aren't the same people who made the last 3 movies. Like, this is a completely new thing. It's a franchise with a known killer. you know, the killer is iconic, you know, and it's like, why don't you watch the new film first and then make your opinion on it? Then that's fine.
Yeah, no, I agree with you in that regard. What I guess what I meant, yeah, is whether you like the film or are willing to watch it as a consumer versus like canceling it. You know, like so the whole cancel it idea. Like I'm not like actively campaigning for people to not watch it like that. I think is bullshit. Uh, it's the personal choice of deciding to not watch it. You know, because you personally don't want to do that. Like I'm good with that. Yeah, and I have trouble getting on really any bandwagon when it comes to the mob. You know, sometimes even for I don't know, like good stuff. Like I mean, and sometimes I feel stupid for that. Like I absolutely avoided Terrifier 2 because it was the indie film that was kicking Jeepers Creepers Reborn's ass.
I loved it. Yeah, I love Terrifier too. Because
Yeah,
I like
well,
Terrifier and I like that director's work. So
my thing is, I was like, I'd never heard of it. Not a big fan of killer clowns, and I heard that it was like super, super, super gory. And so I was just like, I wrote it off, and then I thought about it for a little while, a couple of weeks, and when it finally came out on streaming, I thought, you know what, I'm being an idiot. Maybe I love killer clowns. I don't know. Time to check it out. And then I watched it, and I'm like, oh god, I went from like not watching it to total fanboy.
Yeah, I played a killer clown in a film that has not been released, and this thing was made like 5 years ago called Clown Motel Massacre. I started off as a PA, and the guy who was supposed to play the clown dropped out, and they're like, okay, John, you're not doing anything. We're all doing 3 or 4 jobs. You're a PA. You're now the killer clown. So I basically went from like down here to up here in like a matter of a day. Unfortunately, the guy's clown suit was 2 sizes too small. I'm a big guy, so it's all kind of stretched out and all that.
You got to use that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so it's weird how things happen, but it's because you can look at that stuff for anything. I mean, like, I'm an atheist, and a lot of people don't like that, but that's their problem. And my favorite actor is Tom Cruise. I think the guy's the GOAT. And should I not like him because he's a Scientologist?
I see. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you have to separate the two. And has Scientology destroyed lives? Yes, it has. Has Tom Cruise personally destroyed lives? I don't know. I have absolutely no idea. But the guy makes a solid film. I mean, Top Gun Maverick proves it. So you can look at anything and say, well, this is bad. I'm not going to watch it. Now, obviously, being a pedophile is different, but it's but stuff like from Harvey Weinstein or even the stuff with Bill Cosby, it's I was a massive fan of Bill Cosby, and this is back in the day of vinyl, is I used to listen to his records all the time. Yeah. Now I kind of choose not to, just because it's been tainted. But it's weird. I guess
that's why you can't apply one. There's not like one camera filter you can apply that's gonna hit everything. You got to take it a thing at a time. I sat with it for a minute. I was at Orwo Studios in Louisiana, and we were doing a 6-part mini series called Salvage Marines. So it's like a sci-fi, kind of a blue collar sci-fi Starship Troopers sort of thing. We had Casper Van Dien as the main guy.
Oh, nice.
And we were there. We were doing prep for 2 months, and then I think we were in our 5th week of shooting. We had 8 weeks of shooting total. And while I was there, I found a bunch of old sets from Jeepers Creepers 3, like in the back of one of the big studio buildings. And I was like, hold on a second, this is Jeepers Creepers stuff. So I asked some of the crew, and they were like, yeah, I think they actually made Jeepers Creepers 3 here. And I'm like, well, that's not no big deal. why are you getting so excited about this? And so even in just those initial moments, because when you're the writer of a series, you can kind of walk around. You're not king of anything, but you can come and go a little bit easier than perhaps like a grip or a lighting person. So you end up having a lot more conversations across departments than your average person. So as I started asking around, because I wanted to find out who had worked on it, who knew about it. I started doing recon to find out, well, like what do people know? Like, why is there all this Jeepers Creepers stuff on this stage? So somebody knows something somewhere. I want to find this out. So I spent a couple of days just talking to a lot of people, sort of trying to track down what had happened and what was going on, who knew what, and then came to find out that, you know, a couple of the people that were involved in my production at the higher level had acquired the Jeepers Creepers rights and were looking at doing a fourth movie. And so as soon as I found out who they were, I pretty much abused my proximity to them for about a month. And pretty much every day was like, you realize I'm a super fan of Jeepers Creepers. I should totally write this. And I just kind of browbeat my way, onto the project, showing them scripts that I'd done, kind of pointing out like, hey, you've already financed my TV series. Maybe you should, if you already trust me to one degree. So I think it was just digging in and staying with it. But over the course of kind of presenting myself as this intense Jeepers Creepers fan, it also became necessary frequently to discuss the Victor Salva thing, because it's just at the front of everyone's mind. It for better or worse, it is a part of the franchise. There's no getting away from it. You have to just embrace it up front, which I think we did our best to with Jeepers Creepers Reborn, as far as kind of how we created the world. We have our universe, and within our universe, though, his three movies exist, so that we could kind of add that extra level of plot separation from him. I know it's a little meta, but we felt like we needed to.
Yeah, they at the beginning of the film, when the two main characters are driving, the male main character is watching Macabre Mysteries, and he says, yeah, that the first three films are movies.
Yep.
And that's it. So why didn't you guys want to link your film to the three movies like they actually happened, instead of making them just like three movies?
For a couple reasons. One, we wanted that extra. I mean, we just really did want that extra level of separation from the creator of that creature. It felt better for us as a creative team to kind of separate the creeper from its creator a little bit more than just not having him involved in movie number 4. We kind of wanted the story of number 4 to also not involve him a little, or to kind of throw that little dart, as it were. And then I think for us, it was taking the creeper and reimagining it into our version, so that A, that's something we wanted to do. B, now it's our version of the creeper. There is a very definite difference between Timo's creeper and Victor's creeper. And as we get into new films, we have 2 more coming up. I don't have any dates on those, but we do have 2. When we wrote the first one as a planned first one of the trilogy, so there's a lot of things in the first one that will be revealed as Easter eggs, or as will be revealed as having been Easter eggs.
Okay. For me, I think that's awesome. I mean, I look forward to 2 more movies, and
we wanted to build a world. I think, and that's a key difference, I think, between us and the Victor movies is, it felt like he didn't really have a plan for what he was doing, or if it was a plan, it was a little disjointed. We have a very specific thing we're doing, so that there's consistency between all the movies. There's not going to be differences in like his power levels, his behaviors. Consistency is really important for us. And I feel like, even though I'm a lover of all 3 of those films, you can feel the time difference between when they were each made. You can kind of feel the filmmaker changing. You can feel they're all kind of dated for their own time period in a way. And I'm hoping that by Jeepers Creepers having this kind of more like a fairy tale vibe, that it can kind of pull away from that datedness a little bit.
Well, I don't think Victor Salva ever wanted. I don't think he was planning on doing sequels at all. And it was Francis Ford Coppola, right, who said, "We'll make a sequel," and he's like, "But can't.
How do I
You
do
know,
this?
yeah, I'm stuck within these like 23 days, and what do I do? And he goes, well, then just have it take place like the day before or the day after the first movie or something. You know, you could, you know, and do it that way. So I guess, I mean, if he kept wanting to make these films, he could, but it would all have to be within that time period, unless he did like Jeepers Creepers
Right.
2050 or something like that.
It's
Uh,
interesting that you bring that up. That actually that reveals kind of a hole in my knowledge. I don't. I went into the Jeepers into that job. I don't know. I don't know very much about the backstory behind all those movies, other than that, you know, Victor had his legal stuff. You know, he had his pedophile stuff. I didn't know about the Coppola stuff. I didn't know. You know, yeah, I really didn't have any visibility on what was going on behind the scenes. I was just a fan of the films. So I've learned more about the behind the scenes stuff of Jeepers making the fourth one than I ever did being a fan. So it's yeah, that's kind of wild. That's pretty unique. I've never worked on a film project that's quite had this much sort of social baggage before.
yeah, it's and Coppola's been criticized a lot, especially since his name is on all three. I know, I think on the first two, I don't think this is on the third. But I mean, just saying, like, how could he, you know, do this? You know, how could he support a pedophile? And I used to live, I'm in Las Vegas now, but I used to live in Marin County, which is Northern California, the Bay Area. And I worked at the movie theater called the Cinema, which he half owned with George Lucas.
Hmm.
So all the Lucas movies would play there, all the Coppola films would play there, Spielberg would play there, all those guys would play. And then like when Tucker came out, there's a big premiere and he was there. And so he's very, I mean, he's known worldwide, but he's very well known in the Bay Area. And so I guess for him to attach himself to Victor Salva, it's like, dude,
Oh,
what are you kind of doing here? But yeah, I worked at a movie theater called the Tamalpais, and we used to play all the, well, what were supposed to be the garbage movies.
right.
And oddly, we got the Karate Kid, which ended up being a massive hit. We got like Nightmare on Elm Street, which was a huge hit. We played like a lot of the Cannon movies, the Empire films, all that. And we got this movie called Powder. And I'm watching it, and I don't think I knew anything about Victor Salva at the time. And I'm like, this is kind of weird. Why is Sean Patrick Flannery look like an 8-year-old boy? This is really kind of creepy. And Jeff Goldblum like fawning over him. And I'm just like, this is really strange. And then somebody said, well, then you should go see that movie, Nature of the Beast, which is Lance Hendrickson and Jeff Fahey, I believe. And that's during VHS times. And I watched it and I'm like, this is really kind of creepy. This
Yeah.
relationship between them. What's going on here? And then Clown House started to come around, going like, oh, the director molested one of the kids, allegedly, molested one of the kids on set. And for a long time, we didn't know who that kid was. And then it kind of came out. I won't say his name, but it's and it was like, well, what the? And then we watched Clown House, and it's just like, okay, this is kind of weird. What's going on here?
But there's
And
there's a through line here, people.
yeah, so and then it goes into Jeepers Creepers, and I'm like, isn't that the guy that's considered a pedophile? And we, and I go to see the film, it's probably with a couple friends, and all the stuff with Derry was
Yeah.
just
Oh yeah.
weird. And it's like,
Yes.
you got a really a beautiful, attractive female, and he's not focusing on her, he's focusing on Justin Long. And it's like, and he's got like the midriff kind of missing from the shirt.
Yep.
And but it was just like, okay, I liked the movie. I enjoyed it. And then the second one came along and he has all the guys on top of the bus without their shirts on.
Yep. Yep.
And if I had made the film, I would have had all the girls on the top sunbathing. But it's like, okay, there's something really weird here. And then, because I do own, I brought these out. So I own 1 and 2 like this, and then I do own part 3, which I've never understood why it says theatrical edition. I don't know if you know anything about that.
No, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know if there's 2 cuts of the movie. And then I do own the 4th one.
There we go.
Yeah, so I do have all 3. And I think the 3rd one for Jeepers Creepers kind of goes away from all the boy stuff.
It of the yeah. Oh, it you can tell that he'd been admonished, and was being a little more careful. Yeah, and well, I mean, and just everything we've been talking about the last 15, 20 minutes, it just you know you do, and the director and I kind of had a few conversations about it where you're just like, you're playing in a playground built by a despicable person, but you're trying to, in a lot of ways, all of us we're horror fans, and we want to be able to like Jeepers Creepers without it being weird. And so in a lot of ways, you kind of we saw Reborn as sort of alchemy. Love it or hate, love that movie or hate that movie. I feel like it sort of it kind of acid bathed a lot of the Victor out of it. I think that was our big thing, it's such a radical departure creatively. It's still the creeper, but just the way it was shot, the way it was written, the creature itself, it is a radical departure from Victor's work that I felt like for us, even if we aren't, if we're ultimately not brought back for the second installment, or if after the first three, there's a TV show, or who knows where this franchise is going to go. It is doubtful in Hollywood that myself and Timo are going to stay. I don't see any studio. I mean, even Marvel doesn't do that. They're not going to keep us forever. They're eventually going to move in a different direction with different people.
I want them to keep you guys. I really hope that they do.
I love it,
because then you get something like the Star Wars sequels that are an absolute and total mess, and directors going against one another, and political agendas thrown in there, and you're getting just an entirely messy, trilogy. While if the same people work on all three films, like you said, you have a beginning, middle, and end. You know what's going to happen in the second and third film. It just makes more sense to me.
Well, and we, for us, I mean, obviously the paycheck matters, but for us, it was this was a labor of love. We're fans first. We both have careers outside of Jeepers. It wasn't like this was our big moment. It was an important project for us creatively, and as fans. And so I think, just getting the chance to continue to work on this, to continue to make it something that people can enjoy, guilt-free, without cognitive dissonance. I think that's the real win for the horror community in general, is that we're just, every time they let us at this, every time we make a new movie, we're going to get further and further away from people, needing to feel weird about it.
Well,
I'm not saying we're like these martyrs or crusaders. I'm just, it's still it's a job, but it is something that we think about, because it is something that all audience members find themselves thinking about every time you watch the movie. There's no way it's not going to come up in your mind.
Well, it's kind of like Freddy Krueger. When he started out, he was a child molester and he murdered children. By the end of the series, he was, the
was a teen
son.
slasher.
Yeah, it was just like a slasher, and then we brought in the nun with the, what is it, 100 or 1,000 maniacs, and all of a sudden he was complete. And I've always said, to people like, don't you guys remember that he used to be a child molester?
Yeah, Freddy's not great. Like, right about, I would say like Dream Warriors is about, with the first two, I'm just kind of like, you know what, because those are the easiest. Those are the easiest two to write off. Because Freddy's my favorite. Of all the all the horror icons, he's my favorite. But damn.
Well, yeah, and it's you want to get, and eventually they did, because then you had like little kids for Nightmare on Elm Street dressing up like Freddy, probably around the age that he murdered.
Yeah, I think I was one of those kids. Yeah, back in the mid '80s.
And it's. Yeah, so it's funny. So I think eventually people will. I think if you definitely do a second one, Reborn, I think that it will disappear.
Yeah, you just keep you put it perfectly, just like with the Freddy Krueger thing. Like you just keep pushing, in a better direction, and you take these characters that people love, and you get there.
Yeah. And there are now, you mentioned that, on the set there was the Jeepers Creepers 3, stuff. There are Easter eggs in Reborn.
Yeah.
Because I saw when the creeper comes out as he's being reborn, right next to him is something from part 3. And I'm trying to find it. So I keep looking down as I'm looking in my notes to find the name of it, and I can't find it. I know I wrote it down, but it's the like that harpoon launcher that's in part 3 that's on the back of the truck.
Yeah.
And it's like something 500 on it. And I went, oh, that's from part 3. So are there more Easter eggs from any of the other films?
There's a couple of like if you look in the Voodoo Shrine, there's a few voodoo dolls from some of the other characters. If you look really close, you'll I don't even want to spoil it, but like if you look really in the voodoo scenes, especially when they open up the floor, there's a lot of set design stuff that we did that is going to kind of clue you in as to where things are going to be headed. I would say of that's really we do most of our reveals are in the art department. And that's partly us as a creative team, partly that's also producers. It's the business guys get involved, and the business guys are like, look, don't blow the creeper origin in movie 1. We know you want to. I've got a couple of scenes from the first script that the producers were like, we love this, but cut this from the movie and we're going to do this later because we like this scene, but we're not ready to give up this much information yet.
So if adding those pieces from the other films into part 4, does that mean that 1 through 3 did happen?
The idea is that when folklore gets created, folklore is a very widespread and messy sort of phenomenon. And so when you think about how mythology works or how religions get built, so you could imagine if there's all these stories floating around, all these myths and legends and folklore about the creeper in the Reborn universe, there's going to be little stories and little tidbits that are going to get picked up. And so if you were going to make a movie about the creeper inside the Reborn timeline, as it were, you're gonna pull a lot of these elements. So you're gonna see things in, like, let's say the first creeper movie, or like in Reborn where they have the shuriken booth. So the people know about the shuriken because at some point somebody got killed with one or found one, and that became a story, and that becomes part of the creeper lore. And in our Reborn timeline, somebody, when they make those movies, they include the shuriken. So okay. all those movies I would consider those to be folklore that exist inside our movie.
Okay. So
it's a little meta, but it's necessary.
It's perfectly fine with me. I mean, I like it. I mean, I like when they go up and the guy gets all excited about sharp things. I think that is hilarious. And it just like, he just stops, his world stops, these sharp things, and he just kind of goes right to it. And yeah, then there's the throwing stars and stuff with, and which then the creeper kind of takes these things back, if they're made by him or just made by somebody else to put into that booth. That's, that's something totally different.
Well, or the like the way we had, the creeper is in ours, he's weak, he's gaining strength as he goes, he's very much at the beginning of his cycle, and so I thought that was for us that was an important departure, whereas in the previous films, I mean, he's like a pro wrestler level, he's a behemoth, he's a giant tank, but he's near the he's at kind of the height of his power. So I really like the juxtaposition of what we are presenting as the quote unquote real creeper versus the one that they've seen in the movies, where even our characters are like, that is not the creeper I expected. It's still the creeper, but like that's a more it's a more visceral, kind of a desperate, hungry predator than this kind of taunting giant that you have in the others. Even though I like both, we felt like that was a good way to put ourselves in a position where there can be different interpretations of what the creeper is.
Well, and that's a good direction to go, because you want to make your own. You don't want it to be the same, because I did watch Thanksgiving, I think it was. I did watch all the films back to back. And the Salva movies, the creeper does not look the same in each movie, even though they're supposed to be like only 3 days apart from one another.
Exactly.
You know, and so, you know, in one film, the creeper's wearing like a gray shirt. In part 3, he has a red shirt. And, you know, they all look a little different because obviously they're made years apart from one another, but it doesn't exactly match, which is, I guess, fine. I mean, whatever. But it's good, I think, to make something different for your film and the upcoming movies. Did you guys go off of the 25% difference, or did that, like, for people who don't know what that is, in Hollywood, if you change something by 25%, you don't have to pay rights on it.
Oh,
so
no.
yeah, so Disney changed the Enterprise. I'm sorry, Paramount changed the Enterprise by 25%, so it's 25% bigger. So then they don't have to pay rights, because there's 2 different studios that work on the TV shows and the movies. For the Disney stuff, for like Star Wars, the Falcon is 25% different, so they don't pay Lucas anything.
Wild. That's
so
wild.
Was that at all applied?
If it was, that would have been above my pay grade. Yeah, I mean, it's also possible that when we turned in all of our materials, it's possible that our materials were already different enough that the producers didn't need to mention to us that we needed to change it more. So if that rule is in effect, that would have been behind a door that I wasn't behind also. You know, because there was, you know, and even though I really loved the company I worked for, it was, you know, they did kind of keep our, especially Timo and myself, you know, we weren't allowed to talk to anybody about anything. You know, the 2 of us were under a microscope for a while. I mean, especially with the pandemic, because the delays in post, you know, we had to shoot it in 2 different chunks. So we spent a lot of time not being able to talk to anybody about it. And then there would be these just conversations that, like, we just weren't a part of. They were like, this is a producer thing. You guys don't need to know. You need to be able to genuinely not know. If somebody asks you about this sort of thing, you need to be able to have no idea what they're talking about. So we're like, okay. You just, I mean, at that point, you acknowledge, you know what, my job's to write this movie. It's not to get involved in the financing or the politics or the social commentary, whatever. You know, let the producers deal with that. Because there were, I know there were lawsuits during the time we were making the movie.
I read about one. Yeah,
there were lawsuits. There was a lot of sort of scandal, and yeah, they just kind of intentionally asked us to be, you know, just be dumb and focus on your work.
Yeah, because I remember hearing about, you know, Jeepers Creepers 4. I don't even think Reborn was attached to it yet, and they just said, oh yeah, it's being made, but they're out doing reshoots, so it must be bad. And you just clarified something, that it was the pandemic, that you shot this part, pandemic happened, and then you resumed shooting. But from what I heard was film bad, reshoots, you know, that's what I heard, you know.
No, yeah, we got the, you know, the whole thing was going to be done in Louisiana, but then, you know, all the lockdowns started going on. You know, we had some issues with the unions, a lot of the film unions on my previous film, Salvage Marines. And those, you know, there was blood in the water and the sharks were circling. And so they were like, you know what, like, yeah, instead of like, and everybody's locked down. Like you know, it's an indie production. You can't keep paying a full crew to sit in a hotel. You know, so eventually the producers were like, we gotta pull the plug and figure something else out, you know. So they eventually were able to, you know, work with the regulators there in the UK and get the project moved.
Well, okay, so that brings, so 2 questions is, were you looking for an actor or a stunt person or whatever that could continuously play the creeper? Like, we're going to make 3 films. Let's get a guy who's like Robert Englund or Kane Hodder, where he could continue to play the creeper. Yeah, or is it just random actors?
No, we liked our guy. You know, okay, I was not involved. I was not involved in unfortunately, the pandemic, it cut me out in a lot of ways. Like once they moved to the UK, you know, I was pretty much done. It became an essentials only, And, for better or worse, as the writer, like my job was done. um, so that, because they just had to be so careful at that time. That's when you were working in pods. So it was like everyone who has contact with the actors, you're one pod, and there's the production pod. And so just the level of expense, the level of hassle, it just didn't make sense. So unfortunately, a lot of the elements that I would normally be involved in, I wasn't able to do.
Yeah, because I was curious about that. I saw in the credits, it mentioned Louisiana and the UK, and I'm like, well, that's a huge
Yeah.
separation. I mean, it's not like it's just two in the United States, just that they're working in two different states. It's just like, wow, you're going across the pond, as they say.
Yeah, no, that was our pandemic workaround, because the facility, the same company owns facilities in the UK and Louisiana, Black Hanger Studios, and so that was a big reason we kind of went with the dark fairy tale vibe with all the green screen work. Luckily, we had Timo. Timo is the guy who did Iron Sky, so he was the one who was like, "Hey, I am the guy you want making a movie during a pandemic, because I will shoot this thing, by hook or crook." He'll be out there carving the gravestones out of styrofoam. So we got really lucky having him as our director. For being a movie that really did get hit by the pandemic in the middle of the shoot.
Yeah, because this doesn't. When I got the Blu-ray for this, I looked on the back and I'm like, what? There's no special features or anything on this. What? And then, but there's two, and there's a like a 10-minute making of, and then there's, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes or so of the actor being made up as the creeper. And I noticed in the making of there's a lot of green screen, including the like the hotel that the two main actors are in, when the female actress, when she's walking around, that's all green screen, and they shoot it side by side.
There's an incredible amount. I mean, we green screen stuff that you normally wouldn't, only because you can't go anywhere. You're in pandemic lockdown. You're like, well, do you rewrite the script to be, I mean, I don't even know what you would write it to be. That's the beauty of the green screen, is you can be like, well, I've got a green screen, I've got lighting professionals, I've got a set builders. All of us are in the same, quarantine group. Let's make a movie. And that's pretty much how they did it. They just made this movie in quarantine.
Now, which is weird, is because there are some scenes I would have never thought were green screen, but then there are some scenes where you go, I think that's green screen. Was there a difference in how it was done?
I believe, no, this is just my opinion. I believe that they switched VFX companies at some point during post-production. And so I have a feeling that's my gut feeling as to why there's some divergent quality there. Because there are some shots that I look at, because I sometimes dabble in VFX. And so when I'm watching that movie, I'm like, I feel like you didn't have a consistent team the whole time.
Yeah, because you like the hotel room, I would have never imagined. I mean, it was seamless.
Yeah.
But the driving stuff with the two at the beginning, it's like, I think that looks like a green screen. I think they're on a green screen, which there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's plenty of movies, big budget, low budget, middle budget, that use green screen.
And that actually, that one I think is the difference. I think they did have two different shooters for some of that stuff. I think they switched DPs between the US and the UK.
Oh, so some of that would have been shot here, some over there.
That makes sense as to why that's different. That's two entirely different, directors of photography there.
Okay. Did you guys ever, to kind of go back to the beginning of this, did you ever have like a round table where you're like, is this a good film to make because of Victor Salva, or how can we write this to get away from that? Was there any really big concern, like if we make this, it's not going to go anywhere because of the name?
I think those meetings were had prior to Timo and I coming on. I think I'm pretty sure they had those meetings because the way that they handled us is it very much felt like they knew they had found a couple of guys who were willing to go through the fire for it. again, not to overly compare ourselves to the greats, but you look at Peter Jackson doing Dead Alive, and doing that, and then doing Lord of the Rings. It's because he was crazy enough to do it,
Right.
and I think I think a lot of those conversations had been had before, and then after they decided, okay, we're going to do this now, let's go find some filmmakers, who can do this without blinking.
Do you? I mean, when you're being a fan, watching other movies where they've deviated from the original films, are there any where you can sit there and go like, why did they? Because something like Nightmare on Elm Street 2, that's actually from 2 to 3, 2 doesn't exist.
Who's bananas? Yeah, no, I 2 is a good example. I'm just not a fan of 2 in the Freddy thing. It's just not appealing to me. But I do see what you're saying, that like there's I'm struggling to think of one that I haven't enjoyed, that I just flat out haven't enjoyed, because I guess I am such a fan. I usually do find the good in just about any sequel or any.
I try.
So I'm kind of struggling to think of what I didn't like. I guess I could illustrate it by saying what I did like. Like as a fan, I'm a fan of the Jason Friday the 13th stuff. I'm a fan of Freddy. Freddy versus Jason to me is my favorite. It's my favorite Freddy movie and my favorite Jason movie.
Okay.
Even though it is kind of a departure for both of those franchises. That one movie very much stands alone. It's got its own style, its own vibe. Even though it's using these 2 really familiar characters, it doesn't really fit into either franchise.
Right. And they brought on a director who knew nothing about this, who basically, did, like wire work, martial art movies. So, yeah, I mean, I believe it's the same director who did Bride of Chucky, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, I mean, once again, another franchise that he knew nothing about. So is it kind of better to bring on somebody who doesn't know anything about the franchise, or maybe doesn't even like it?
Yeah, well, that's tough to answer, because it's because Timo and I are both I guess me more than him. I'm the diehard Jeepers fan. He's the horror guy who's seen it before. So I think that's probably why we worked so well together. Is I was a fanboy, but I was determined to intentionally make it something different. And then he was coming in as a guy who enjoys those movies, but Timo is going to make a Timo movie. I don't care what script you're going to get. You give him, it's going to be a Timo movie, and it's going to have that tone, that look. He has a very distinct style. So I mean, you could hand him like name a franchise, and if you hand him one, you're going to get the Timo version of that franchise.
Okay.
So this is very much the Timo version of Jeepers Creepers.
So that kind of reminds me of the Halloween films with like Part 5, where the director, like I believe he's French, came over and made something that didn't resemble anything from the other movies. Like, and the producers
to 5 a lot, but before.
Oh, really? Okay.
Halloween 5 and Jeep. Yeah, I've read that a lot, and I've had that said to me a few times, that Jeepers Reborn and Halloween 5 were the Halloween 5 of the Jeepers franchise. I'm like, hey, you know what? Okay, I'll take that.
Did you use, like, while writing this, were you kind of thinking of other horror films? Like, were any other things like influences?
I intentionally tried to transform this from being kind of like a creature. The Jeepers movies are, they're very creature-ish. They follow that kind of creature feature model. And I intentionally wanted to make an 80s slasher. But to me, it was fascinating to try to make something that was paced and written as if it was a 1980s slasher, but it's this really dynamic, vibrant creature. And so I ended up feeling really happy about where that was. And so, yeah, for me, it was going back and watching all the classics. It was mainlining a bunch of Halloween and Friday the 13th and Freddy, just I wanted it to feel like that. Because I'm 43, so I'm at that perfect age to have been a little sponge when all those movies came out. So, they're just in me.
Which is funny is I'm 55. So when all those came out, I was going, what the hell? What? What? This wasn't as good as the last one. What?
Yeah.
And then, so for you, yeah, you were just absorbing it. For me,
I'm just like,
yeah, I'm like, wait, I was here from the beginning, and this isn't the way this goes. What are you talking about? So, because there's a lot of stuff in Reborn that I like. I like that, when the creeper does get reborn, he's kind of dragging himself out. He sees the scarecrow and takes the clothes from the scarecrow. The car is still there, and so how long do you think that car has been there for?
Oh, I mean, who knows? That's a whole other conversation. Orwell Studios.
Well, 23 years, I would think, right? Because that's every 23 years.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know if that was the same prop that's been in all of them or not. I'm not sure.
I think in the making of the set designer said that they made it.
Okay.
He mentions the car or the truck that they took it from, and they kind of recreated it. But it's something like story-wise, like how long would that car?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean,
if he's being reborn on that day, so that's day one of 23.
Essentially all going to rust out, and it's going to the technology starts to get a little weird. And for me, the cult is a blanket fix for a lot of that, because you have this essentially support group moving through time with him. I'm really excited about getting more into that in the upcoming features. To me, I know a lot of people didn't like the cult aspect of Halloween, but for me in Jeepers it works because it kind of helps me. It helps the creeper focus on being the creeper, but without us having to necessarily be like, well, how does he fix the truck?
Yeah.
Is he the one that went to the DMV to get the plates?
Well, okay. I was actually going to bring that up because in 1 and 2, it's not mentioned, but I think it's in 3, they purposely say, oh, it's a handmade plate. Because I've been saying for years, like, what did the creeper do? Go to DMV and register the creeper mobile?
Yeah. How is this? What is, who pays taxes on this barn?
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff I like. I felt like we're going to get this cult together, and we're going to keep a lot of what's going on with them, kind of behind the wall for this first movie, make it obvious that they're there and they're moving pieces on the chessboard, because to me, like that, again, coming from my military background, for every one soldier in the field, there's like 10 of us behind him handling food, bullets, places to sleep, places to take a crap. You have a support element, and I feel like the creeper essentially needs that in order to have all the things that excuse me, that he has, that we love that he has. Like, we love that he has the truck and the shuriken, and we love he has access to some technology, even if it's rudimentary. He's got all got all this Americana folklore around him, and so to me, I'm like, well, our cult is facilitating a lot of that.
Yeah, it's because in part 3, that truck could do a lot. Yeah. I mean,
like just with the automated spear chuckers and
and the spikes that come down, and it's like, wow, he really pimped this thing out from parts 1 and 2.
Guy knows how to use an arc welder.
Yeah,
where's the arc welder?
Yeah. So is he there with the welding mask on? And he's,
so he knows how to use a acetylene torch and all that stuff. He's got grinders and okay.
Well, see, and I would take that, like the house that he's throwing. Well, of course, in the films they say that he burnt the house down in like the first couple, but for houses like that, it's almost like the Myers house. Like, why didn't they just tear the Myers house down? Like, so many bad things have happened to that house. Why not just tear it down? But I think it's like one of those houses that you just leave alone.
You just leave alone. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't want.
Yeah. In ours, it's more direct. It's nobody goes there because there are people who prevent regular society from getting out there. There's a human element keeping folks away.
Well, and you talking about with like yeah, like it was 3 or 4 people that were working with him that like got the people into the house and all that stuff. That it makes more sense if there's some sort of magic or black magic, supernatural type stuff going on with the creeper. With Michael, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like you know, it's you could tell they were stuck. They're like, well, okay, crap. Now what do we do? Well, we'll bring in a cult. And even though I do like certain elements of it, like I am a fan of Curse of Michael Myers. I actually like Halloween 6. I like both cuts of the movie. Um, I don't think it works with Michael. That'd be like saying with Jason, like, oh, he belonged to a water cult.
Yeah, it doesn't quite mix.
No, but with somebody like the Creeper, since we don't totally know anything about him, you know, we know very little. That, and that's if it's even a he. I guess I'm assuming it's a man,
Well, and you
but it
have
could
this,
be both.
you could be both, and you have this great juxtaposition between, the creeper is so bestial and savage, but there is there's a technological element. It feels like there is a culture around him, and we just wanted to, ramp that up.
So something just came to mind. So in Reborn, there is a scene where he gets his arm cut off.
Mhm.
And then he goes up to somebody dead. So it's a man, and he tears that arm off and he sticks it in. So we've seen this in the other movies. So I'm not spoiling anything. Or he does it with a whole head,
Yeah.
and he sticks the arm on. What if the person that was hanging up there was a woman? Would he still tear the arm off and put the female arm on him so he has one male, one female?
So from where I'm coming from, what and unfortunately, it's interesting you hit on that. That is an element that was in one of the earlier drafts that we ended up
Oh,
having to cut. Is a little bit of a conversation about that, where because pre pandemic, we had to rewrite a lot of the script for the pandemic, and unfortunately we had to condense a little bit of our hero cast, so we had a little bit more of a body count in an earlier draft, and so there is a conversation between two characters when it's Chase and a character who was deleted, where they talk about how the creeper seems to focus on, like, it kills the women, but it's killing and consuming the men. And so they also notice it, and so they're so in my mind as the writer, like, no, it will kill and torture women. It consumes and remakes itself out of men, which leads into this interesting relationship that we're going to be developing with Lane.
okay, yeah, because there is an ending.
There's a whole lot
her.
there with
Yeah.
Lane and her baby that further down the road, just waiting on the call.
Yeah, because it's I was just thinking about that, because if the creeper only could use a woman's arm or leg or something, like it was the only thing there, like, would it take it? Would it use it as almost like like if you get a flat tire on your car and you use the donut, and then later on you change the donut out for the actual tire, like, could he take the man arm that got cut off, put on the female arm, and then later on find a man, take that arm off, and then put the man arm back on?
I think from where I'm at creatively with the creeper, I would say yes. That's how it would work. It would be very much, if I was going to present that in the story, I would present it just like you said, with a donut. It's a doofer. It's a doofer piece. It'll torture women. It'll eat women, but it remakes itself from males.
Okay, and so bringing up Lane, and if you don't want to say anything, because this is in the next movie, why it really seemed to focus on her? Why her? Like, all the people, like the woman in the shop focused on her. Everything seems to be focused on her.
So I guess the hints that I can give is that it's Lane and her child are both important. It is not this isn't the sort of thing where Lane is a character who only exists to carry a child. She has her own path to take through this trilogy. Her child has its own path. So they are two separate characters. At the moment they are conjoined in a single physical form, but as far as the plot is concerned, those are two individual entities with their own agency.
Now, with your guy's creeper, and I noticed that Victor Salva kind of got away from this too, is that the creeper seemed to only take people for things that he needed. So like Justin Long, he took like his eyes, and then like he had the face that was there, like the skin mask that he had hanging up.
Yeah, it's we left it it's inscrutable as to what he might take from you, but it is unlikely that he's going to take a ton of things. It's like, oh, I love that one. That one's got a great left hand. That one, I'll take that one's leg. Like, so it is that. It is you know, the creeper has this sense that we as humans can't necessarily understand, but it knows what it needs from each individual person, or what it wants from each individual person.
Okay. And then the beginning of the movie starts off with, you know, like I said, the TV show, that Macabre Mysteries. So was that always planned from the beginning, was to kind of, in a sense, redo the beginning of part one?
Yeah, that was what we wanted. We wanted to kind of start out with that way, and then, you know, moving into the cell phone, that was a big deal.
Yeah, because they say they're in the same county, right? It says Poho.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's why I was wondering, like, did the first three movies really happen? Because they seem to be kind of in the same areas and some of the same weapons, stuff like that.
Well, and you're the whole idea is that, like, with the Horror Hound Festival, I mean, that would be like holding a festival in Ed Gein's hometown. No, that's kind of what that's the equivalent of what they're doing. Is they're, you know, take a prolific serial killer from our time or our realm, and so, you know, now do a big celebration in that person's hometown where they did all the murders.
Yeah, and that was a real festival, wasn't it?
Horror Hound is real.
Yeah, that was a real. How much of it was real?
No, the Horror Hound is real, and we used Horror Hound's branding, but the festival, because we were still in quarantine, we still had to shoot that all movie style.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't like it was going on and you guys went over and shot in the festival as it was going on.
But we did work with the Horror Hound Festival to incorporate their real life festival, and we did our movie version of their real festival.
Okay. And one thing that I did write down was copyright. There's a lot of there. You see Beetlejuice. There's like a little Freddy in there. I think there's like all these things that technically would be.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of choices they made in the art department and their costuming department. That's another one of those that I'm like, hey, you know what? I don't work for the legal department. You know, I didn't put it in the script that everybody has all these specific things. You know, that's a costuming, that's a director, producer, costumer question. Because I would have been like, you know, so it's very possible that I mean, I don't know of any lawsuits or any issues, so it's very possible that they did get some clearances. You know, I know that stuff. It's possible to get clearances like that. You know, or like, I mean, like the painting behind me, you know, if I was going to put that in a movie, you know, it would be wise for me to get clearances from the artist. I don't have to, but why open yourself up to it?
Could it be that since there's or maybe there's, I don't know, some stipulation, but I mean, there are Beetlejuice costumes that like people can wear to Halloween parties, and people will take pictures of you as Beetlejuice, or
because it's a light. The company's already made its money by selling the costume. It's a licensed piece of product, so they've already been paid for its use. And we're not presenting Beetlejuice as Beetlejuice. We're presenting a person wearing a licensed Beetlejuice costume. That to me makes sense. That's the lawyer cartwheel that I bet works.
yeah, because nobody actually says, "Oh, I'm this character." They're just walking around. So, and I like the Horror Hound. I thought that was a cool segment. Yeah. I like the guy who pretends to be shot with the arrow. And it freaks everybody out. I like that, and of course, Sharp Things I thought was great.
That's actually the producer of the movie.
Oh, really?
Gets hit with the arrow. Yeah, gets killed taking a leak.
You know, sometimes when like the director or the producer or something is in the movie and they get, you know, killed, it's because everybody wants to see them get killed.
Right.
Like how many people want to see James Cameron get killed on film?
Right, exactly.
You know, not in real life, but
Like,
you know,
where's the Terminator? Yes.
yeah, killed by the Terminator or eaten by an alien or something like that. And so I enjoyed all that. I liked the cemetery stuff. I enjoyed that. It was a nice, creepy looking cemetery. So I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Yeah, I like the. I don't know. I like I said, I'm a fan of Timo's work. I like the his entire dark fantasy fairy tale vibe. I like the way he did that.
So maybe this is something because I didn't know that this was going to be a trilogy. So our male lead actor, he when he's in that shop which has all the weird stuff in it,
Mhm.
he pricks his finger on top of the house that they eventually go into.
Yep.
Does the prick mean anything?
Uh, well, first off, for those of you that know about voodoo, now they've got some of his blood, so put that in the back of your head.
Oh,
Uh, and also that the thing he pricks his finger on is what ultimately they shove down the creeper's throat.
oh yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
There's a couple of things going on there.
Yeah, I always think now I'm a huge Amityville fan that
Mhm.
I mean I buy anything that if this said Amityville Jeepers Creepers Reborn, I mean I would I would have bought it no matter what. But it's so I always think when I see a dollhouse or like a model house, I want it to always be the Amityville house. And just in my head, it's just like, no, that model should be no, that's a dollhouse. It should be the Amityville house for no reason at all, just to have the Amityville house in
In
multiple
movies,
films.
yeah.
Yeah. So now what? So it's supposed to be an escape house that they go into, and I'm assuming because of what
A
happens, it
lie.
was
That's the lie.
never. I'm
There's
sorry.
never an escape house. Yeah, that's the lie they're sold.
Yeah. The law. Okay. So yeah. So it was never. So the filmmakers don't even know that then that go in there.
Right.
So that was the thing the whole time. Now, was it just to get Lane and to kill everybody else?
Well, I mean, you get Lane there, so he can do his thing with Lane. But why not bring lunch?
Uh, makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
you gotta. There is and it kind of ties into the whole like why he keeps focusing on the record player. There is you can imagine the house as kind of an altar around. It's a temple around the altar. So there is a lot of ritualistic stuff going on with the way the creeper is attacking people, moving people to different rooms. So there you need if you're going to do this big ritual, like you need human sacrifices to feed to your lion, as it were. So there are there's a reason for there to be a lot of people. You need meat and victims.
Okay. So that would explain, like, I guess it's the basement or maybe even further down the basement, the stone
Yeah.
altar that's there that Lane is on.
Well, yeah, so you can imagine, like, if this is a place of evil or a place of power, and so people build an altar uh, at the place of power, and then they build a house over the place of the place of power. So it's now it's a temple, kind of like how in a lot of religious places around the world, you've got well, there was our magic hill, and so we built a thing there, and then after we built something there, then they built a church there, then they built a mosque there. You know, these places of power keep having things. They keep attracting people. They keep bringing people in.
So I'm guessing then up until when the creeper is born at the begin, near the beginning of the film, this society, this cult is planning this whole thing out.
Preparing the way.
Okay. And so inside that shop, um, I know that the main actor, he finds the knife from the old movies. What about that spear that he holds up? That looked familiar to me.
That's it is. I think it's the second. It
It launches something out. That gun launches something that looks
no,
very
there
similar
was
to
a.
that.
I think it's a prop from the third one. I have to look back because what we wanted to do was we wanted to fill that shop with things that they might touch because they're now on this magical journey. So there are things that they're going to touch that are going to be important for the cult to see what they touch, notice what they put their energy on. Uh, so there's like I said, it's hard. it's tough to go into it not being able to, not wanting to do spoilers for the new one, but so much of that is going to come together, because you're like, oh, okay, when they're in the shop, that's almost like this weird magical audition where they're like, oh, I mean, almost like that cabin in the woods scene, the Joss Whedon movie, where they're like, which cursed item are you going to pick?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a little bit like that, where they're like, well, they're watching them to see, well, like, what items are they going to go for? What are they going to notice that's in here?
Okay.
How much will the lambs see?
Yeah, it's stuff like that drives me nuts when people do it, because when I was younger and probably early teens, my friend's house got painted and the inside, and it was just like white. And the dad was taking us around, and I went to touch the wall. For some reason, he just goes, yeah, this is freshly painted. And I went like that. He goes, don't touch the wall, because you're going to get your fingerprints or get, it's going to, you'll leave dirt on it. Since then, I haven't touched anything like that. I mean, it's like, and so it drives me nuts when people go into these type of shops and like our main guy, and he just picks up. It's like, don't put that down. Stop touching everything. Stop touching everything.
People do that. I've seen them. I actually have a friend in New Orleans who does a lot of, she creates a lot of the voodoo material for some of the shops down there. And we've had similar conversations where she's like, whether you believe in this stuff or not, people get so handsy in witchcraft stores in real life. It totally makes sense in horror movies, because in real life, people just want to touch everything. And you're like, I thought you were superstitious. Why are you touching this? But they do.
Yeah, I had mentioned when I first contacted you, I said that we have a friend in common, which is Jonathan Moody. And both of us do a podcast that's starting up next month again. It's season 2, and it's for horror film lovers. And now this season, we're going to do all the Conjuring films and James Wan. So I've been watching them all. And I think it's Annabelle Goes Home, one of the actresses gets into the room where Annabelle is, and she is just touching everything. and there's locks on the doors. Do not enter. Beware. You will die if you enter. And she just walks in and starts touching everything. And I'm thinking, if this stuff is full of spirits and she knows that's what these people do, the Warrens, why would you be touching everything?
But and I don't, people just do it. I don't know why people do it. It's they do it in movies because they do it in real life. People just get handsy with weird stuff. Okay.
Well, yeah, it's like at the Sharp Things at that booth. The guy goes up and immediately starts touching everything.
That's what I does. Or like you go to Guitar Center. How many times has somebody just touched literally every instrument in there?
Yeah,
that's how it goes.
Yeah, bring in some wipes with you.
Right. That's that's just how. That's how it is.
The one dialogue that I like in that Sharp Things scene is the main guy pays to throw the stars, and then the booth guy goes, yeah, pick from the middle, and he picks from the side, and the guy goes, no, the middle.
Yeah.
Because that happens all the time with people too, is you tell them take the left door and they aim for the right.
They just go, It's the actors did a real good job with that. They I liked a lot. The chemistry with everybody worked really well.
Yeah, and from that behind the scenes, I noticed that a lot of them had that British accent.
Yeah.
So that was covered up pretty well.
Yeah, no, they did a real good. I mean, being a man from Arkansas and living in Louisiana, it's hard for them to pass a fake across you. But I will say, though, being someone who usually picks out the fakes, I was really happy.
Yeah, and speaking of possible fakes, you being in Arkansas, you got the Bigfoot thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you got the Legend of Boggy Creek,
I grew up as being terrified of the Boggy Creek monster.
Me too. When I saw that as a little kid, I was terrified.
Too far away.
Oh, it's not far away?
No, not from where I was.
Oh wow. That's that stuff scared me. I mean, it's especially when you're a little kid, you get that kind of Bigfoot in the glass, like looking through the window, and that sticks in your head.
Yeah. And we, as a kid, we lived out in the country, so we're like 2 miles from the nearest neighbor. So like just that movie really hit home. Really hit home.
How much? I mean, after a while, I guess you would probably be like, nah, that's fake. Did they really kind of embellish that whole thing? Was it, or is it now just kind of eh?
I think for a lot of folks down there, I mean, myself included, like there's just the woods are so weird down there anyway that like I've with mountain lions, with just all the black bears, whatever. I in a lot of ways I feel like half the people would see a Bigfoot or something and just be like, okay, another big thing in the woods that'll kill you.
Oh wow.
Like I'm busy being a poor rural Arkansan. Go away. So I think a lot of people are just they're just such a pragmatic people down there that they're kind of like, yeah, it's just another hairy thing in the woods.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I know so many people down there who are just so focused on. They're just such outdoors folk. Like I said, I could see them just kind of being like, whatever. But these are the people that are catching alligator gar, or they're grabbing cottonmouths with their bare hands, just redneck river people. So I think for them, it's not a big deal. And I think just as you, and at the same time, for someone like me, you're like, well, I grew up there my whole life and I never saw a mountain lion, never saw a black bear, never felt threatened in the woods. So I don't know. It scared the shit out of me as a kid, but as an adult, if that was out there, I feel like it would have come into the house at some point.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, something like
I would
that.
have seen it after 30 years walking around these woods. I would have seen it or seen evidence of it. But at the same, at least, like I said, never saw a black bear, never saw a mountain lion, saw tracks and saw scat, but. As a writer and a filmmaker, I like the other side. I like to be like, well, maybe I just didn't notice them. I want the world to be a little bigger and a little scarier. So I'm going to go ahead and just not look too hard for evidence.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I was obsessed with Bigfoot, and I watched everything I could. And then my mom started dating this guy that lived in Reading, and he took me to the spot where they shot the famous Bigfoot footage. And his house was being built. I think he was building it. So all the windows had plastic, and it wasn't like solid plastic. It was like a sheet of plastic.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sleeping right next to it. And it terrified me that a hand could just pull right through. Yeah, and grab me.
Yeah.
And he had an outhouse for a bathroom. So I said, I'm not going to the outhouse. I'm going to pee off the deck. So I went and I peed, and I could swear I saw something looking behind, like looking, like on a tree, kind of doing this, but I think it was an owl. And I took all these pictures of poop, which probably ended up being like bear poop or horse poop.
Right.
And then I took all pictures of feet. I thought, oh my God, there's the Bigfoot footprint. No, it was probably a bear. It was, when I look back at those photos, it's like, yeah, it doesn't really look like a foot. But I would like to think, that
that's where I'm at. I feel like, I have a Bigfoot sort of mockumentary that I shot last year that we're still in post on.
Oh,
our whole approach was, kind of go out there and create this mockumentary of these Bigfoot hunters. But then, we started finding weird stuff out there and started hearing weird things. And you're like, we're making this is fiction. And so it's still fiction, but that storyteller part of your heart and mind, you're like, I don't want to find out whether it's real or not, because I like having the mystery out there.
So do you think it could be your mind or my mind or somebody else's mind? Like they say, if you walk down an alleyway, you're going to see someone behind you when there isn't. If a trash can falls over, you're going to think, oh my God, there's somebody by that trash can, but it's only a cat.
Yeah, I think everyone has a different, like your brain works in a different way. Like if you think of a deer, again, I grew up hunting and everything as a kid, so deer don't look like anything in particular. That beige nothingness, that's what they look like. They don't look like that tree or that bush. They look like the negative space in between the tree and the bush. and your brain fills in that hole sometimes. And like when we did the Bigfoot mockumentary, we connected with some people who were like claimed to have Bigfoot experiences. And when you get to talking with them, even this one guy we had, his whole thing is he was like, maybe I just saw a bear and my imagination made it look like a monster.
Yeah.
Or I saw a monster, and to cope with it, my brain is like, nah, bro, you saw a bear.
Oh, okay. Okay, interesting.
And so he's like, he doesn't know which one it is. He's like, all I know is that I saw something. It's either a monster that my brain said, no, it's not a monster, it's a bear, you're all good. Or it was a bear and your brain said, monster. Either one, I mean, those are two valid survival mechanisms. Which one are you? Either way, you're not going over there.
Oh, I know exactly who I am. I was shooting a film up in the mountains in Vegas, and it was like 2 a.m. that we were shooting, and I had to pee, so I went off by myself and into a clearing, and I'm peeing, and all of a sudden I hear. Arr. Now it was most likely a raccoon. I was probably peeing on a raccoon or something, but in my mind it was killer, Bigfoot, alien, yep. And yep. I just booked. I don't even think I zipped up. I ran back and I took a nosedive into the ground, and I could hear in the distance, John's down. And I got up and I had mud on me, and I'm running back. And I'm like, wow, I just told myself what type of person I am. If you and I are out there and I hear something growl, bye.
Yeah. My body just told me what kind of person I am. But I love that. To me, that's the spark you look for as a creator. I want to find out more, but not everything.
Well, and what you're saying about Bigfoot in Legend of Boggy Creek, it really was just black. Like you saw the occasional arm or like the face in the glass, but whenever a hunter would see him, it would be in the distance, like between trees, and it was like a void.
Yeah,
it was just like this weird black void that was standing there.
Well, it's like when you're hunting, it's that right angle of your head to your shoulder that you're trying to break up. That's where you see people wear like ghillie suits, or they put like twigs and stuff, and it's to break up that right angle that says human being or human. You're breaking up your silhouette, and it's to trick the brain. It's all about tricking your brain, and so it's easy for me to think, oh yeah, if there's the best camouflage is to just be still and somewhere you shouldn't be, and our eyes will just pass right over it.
Well, and did you use any of that for Jeepers Creepers Reborn? Knowing about Legend of Boggy Creek and Bigfoot, and you being there originally, was that type of thing applied?
Yeah, that home invasion. It's funny. I didn't think of Boggy Creek as this huge influence, but now that I'm thinking back to Jeepers Creepers, just this threatening home invasion thing, like especially him scratching at the door and him looking through the peepholes. Yeah. Now that I think about it, I'm like, oh shit, that's straight out of Boggy Creek.
In tribute to.
Yes. It's an unconscious homage.
Well, and now that you're in Texas, now you got a second thing. You got the town that dreaded sundown. So
there it is.
You've now lived in two places that are kind of notorious for real things that might or might not have happened.
Well, I actually went fishing at Donkey Lady Bridge not a month ago. So there's it's weird haunt. Yeah, it's like some weird half donkey woman ghost that's supposed to mess with you on this bridge, and you get there and you're like, it's beautiful and there's people everywhere. There's no ghosts here.
So how much of all of that? Obviously we have to take something to make these movies. Somebody had to have some sort of, Jason on their mind, or Wes Craven had Freddy on his mind. You guys for the new film would have the Creeper. How much of this stuff do you think is really real? That we're influenced, but is the Donkey Lady real? Is it, how much of this stuff is real?
Oh man, like I said, I don't know, and I don't want to know, because I want that mystery to stay there. I think as a storyteller, you want to be in that liminal space in between truth and fantasy. You want it to be just fantastical enough to not believe, but just grounded enough to make people stop. So for me, I'm like, yeah, I tend to give credit to, any ghost story I hear, any weird stuff. I'm like, I accept it at face value. Is that house haunted or is it not haunted? I'm like, well, what is haunted? We could come up with 18 different definitions of what haunted means. Is it ghost? Is it an afterlife ghost? Is it weird energies? Is it cold spots? There's so many different ways to explain it, so many different ways to tell that story. You were in the Clown Motel. That's a great example. Did you guys shoot at the Clown Motel?
We actually shot up in Totem Pop at the Clown Motel. Now, the funny thing is, I am one of these people who needs proof. I need proof of Bigfoot. I need proof of UFOs. I need proof of the Loch Ness Monster. Otherwise, I don't really believe in it. I want it to exist. I'd love for Bigfoot to exist. I think it's great. But I need that proof. And when we were up there, we shot for, I want to say 4 or 5 days. I didn't hear or see a thing. But other people said they did. And I'm like, yeah, but maybe that's because I don't believe in it. I didn't. Like, if it's real, maybe a believer will see it. But somebody,
you got your head down, looking. Yeah, no, the Clown Motel is a great example. Because again, I don't have an issue with clowns. Like I said, I like killer clowns from outer space. That's about the closest thing to killer clowns I like. But for me, that's more campy sci-fi. But while we're there, I was like, well, why the hell does this exist? It exists because somebody decided to just decorate the hell out of their motel with clowns. That's one argument as to why it's so creepy. But also, you look out your window and there's an old miners' cemetery. And I'm guys, that's the thing that's haunted as hell. There's an Old West cemetery next to the hotel.
Yeah.
Then you planted a bunch of weird clowns there.
And there's a bunch of children's graves.
Yeah. So I'm like, man, you built a clown motel next to a bunch of spooky cemeteries. Of course, there's going to be weird stuff. Do I know what it's all going to be? No. But again, as a storyteller, I don't want to know. I just give me the juice because I want to make cool stories out of this stuff.
Well, and that does kind of go back to Jeepers Creepers Reborn, because these are movies, the first 3 films are supposed to be movies based on this character that, or creature that nobody has seen. And then all of a sudden our male lead goes, he is real. He's right there.
Yeah, we've turned Jeepers Creepers into Bigfoot.
Yeah, it's all of a sudden, like if he was obsessed with Bigfoot and you do have a Bigfoot scene in a way. It's when they're looking on the cell phone and you see the creeper kind of behind some trees.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's essentially what we've done to the creeper inside that timeline.
Yeah, and that makes sense because, he is also known as the creeper. He's not going to just stand out in public. Yeah. He's going to be hiding, and he's very much like a bat because you constantly see him up in trees, or he's up on like a ceiling or in a corner, and then he kind of drops down.
Yeah, well, and we made our guy a little. We kind of gave him some little insect vibe to him as well.
Was there anything that you guys really wanted to change from the original to this one? Like, was there anything that bothered you, or was there anything that you really liked that you go, oh, we got to have that on it?
I think as far as to me, it's the imagery, it's the hat, the cloak, the scarecrow imagery. Like, we have to keep all that stuff. That's to me, those are critical elements. Those are the kinds of things that make up the folklore. And you know, they all have, like, the scarecrow is an important element, regardless. And the hat, the coat, the crows, to me, the truck. But you can vary things inside that box.
Yeah, I would be curious. Speaking of the truck, I'd be curious of how he got that truck. Like, was he always the creeper, or did he turn into the creeper? And this is a truck that's passed down, or at some point was he human and he had this truck and a business, and when he became the creeper, it just got rusted.
Yeah,
and kind of wrecked.
I wrote a couple of scenes that go towards that. Those are some of those scenes that the producers yanked out of the script. gonna hold on to that.
Too soon. Too soon.
Yeah, too soon. I suppose what I could kind of wrap it up by saying that I think the one thing I could reveal is that they didn't shoot it in as dynamically a way as they could have, but if you really dig into some of the freeze frames inside the little trap door where they find all the weapons
Oh yeah,
under the altar. Are those a multitude of more jackets, or are they more like skin suits? I don't know.
Okay.
Let's find out later. But there are there's that's the big Easter egg that ties it all together. I think for me is what's going on in that little underground locker. I think is going to have whether I'm the guy that gets to do the next one or not. If they go in a different direction, staff wise, I think they're still going to go with that story, and so I think that scene's going to end up being very revelatory for what's coming down the pipe.
Yeah,
or what's coming down the body chute, I should say.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. So yeah, because the Creeper doesn't seem to be dumb. I mean, he knows in the previous films to burn the house down and kind of get rid of all that evidence. So he's not stupid, that's for sure. All right. Oh, I think that's telling me that he's not, and something's coming up that we need to, that we'll find out.
Yeah.
So, and just his design is cool. I mean, I like this one, and I like both. I wish that they'd make a toy out of this one too. Put them kind of right next to one another.
Yeah, no, they. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I only have this job because I was a fan of the first three. So, no matter how much we might have changed, it's all coming from a place of love.
Yeah, Marvel, they talked to one of the guys that hires like the writers for Marvel, and he goes, "Yeah, I won't hire fans." And I thought,
I heard that.
That's dumb. Why? I mean, I love Spider-Man. I've been reading Spider-Man since I was a teenager. I've been watching the movies. I guess maybe you don't want somebody that knows that much, that you just want a blank slate. I don't know. To me, that just seemed dumb.
I don't really have a lot of respect for postmodernism. And that's what that is.
Yeah, well, I don't have a lot of respect for Disney and what they bring out. So it's gone certainly down the toilet. So it used to be great and now it's not. So, which is why I'm glad that stuff like Jeepers Creepers Reborn, the new Hellraiser, all that stuff is coming out, because it's so much better than what these studios are bringing out.
Breath of fresh air. I mean, that to me, that was to kind of bring it around back to kind of what we talked about. That's why Terrifier 2 was so important for me. It was not a film that I thought I would like at all. But I started kind of I watched the trailer, started thinking, I need this is something that it's just not something I would normally watch. And I felt like it broadened my horizons. Just being like, wow, that came out of nowhere for me. And now I'm a fan of that, and now I'm looking for other films like that. And so I think there's a level of spark and innovation that we have here, kind of on the raggedy edge of indie filmmaking. Which regard the fact just because we saw Jeepers Creepers in the theaters does not mean it was not a brutal indie film,
right?
To create, we shot that movie for what amounts to Marvel's catering budget.
Well, you had mentioned, I read this somewhere, but then looking at your credits, but it said you said, and maybe I'm misquoting, but it said something like, I'm glad to see one of my scripts getting produced. Mm-hmm. So is this the first script to get produced?
No. I've been a working filmmaker for a long time.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
This is the first one that I've written that has received a theatrical release.
Oh, okay. Okay. Got it. Okay. So then that makes sense. So yeah, it played out here in Vegas, but I didn't know. But Terrifier 2 played out here in Vegas, and I think Barbarian played out here. And I had no idea. I mean, you got to kind of look for it, because I would have gone to support it. Yeah,
but half the battle now is cutting through the noise.
Yeah, what is it? Phantom is that company that does the limited releases for like 3 or 4 days. and I think
Yeah,
maybe that's what it
Fathom
was under.
Events. Fathom
Yeah.
Events.
Yeah, so I have to look, maybe subscribe to them or something, because I'm missing all these films in the theater. I'm having to watch them on, on my
Yeah, good.
TV.
Yeah, good stuff is coming out through them, and I'm liking that. I mean, I'd love to see more of that. I hope that that's where we're headed as an industry. I'd love to see a lot more of these kind of limited releases for just these interesting movies, interesting filmmakers who might not have otherwise heard about. Because I think the audience is hungry for that.
Well, and they bring back older movies too. I remember I did go see Amityville 4, The Evil Escapes, and it was an uncut version. It wasn't the TV version. This thing was bloody as hell. And so I think that's maybe where I first learned of them. But yeah, I think I just need to be on some sort of list, like a subscriber list, to figure it out. So one more question for you, then I'll let you go.
All right.
What did you think of, you being a movie fan too, not just a filmmaker, but a movie fan, of Dee Wallace and Gary Graham being at the beginning of the, for the Macabre Mysteries? How did you like that?
It was just cool to have them. It's just cool to see my name on the same list as theirs. I mean, just as an old school fan, you're just like, anytime you get to work with these kinds of folks, it's awesome. I unfortunately did not, because of the pandemic, I didn't get to meet them or work with them directly. But again, just knowing they were in my movie,
Right.
Like I said, being on the same credits list, that's a big deal.
Yeah. I would love to work with both of them, but especially, Dee Wallace. So I think that would be awesome. And she's very friendly on Facebook. You seem to, you can interact with her, and she's just one of those, actors that you can actually talk to. And I don't think it's like an assistant responding. I think it's actually her.
It is her. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, it's kind of like James Wan. I believe it's actually him that does all of his posts, and he responds. And it's like, wow, that just makes you a better filmmaker to me.
When y'all are real people, that's what I love. When I just want people to be real.
Yeah, and it's, like I'd mentioned earlier on, like, this is our first time meeting. So as far as I knew before I looked you up, this is the only thing you've ever done. And then I looked you up and went, oh wow, look, there's this long list of stuff. He doesn't have to talk to me.
That's the beauty of
who am I?
Well, but who am I? Who are you? That's what I love about it, is like you just, I've been doing this almost 20 years now. And for most people, Jeepers was the first thing. I did that series with Casper Van Dien. Everybody knows him from Starship Troopers, but it's like, hey, that guy has taken very few days off since then. You go look at his resume and you're like, dude, he's been on a movie set like every other day since Starship Troopers for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
He's never stopped. And even there's just so much content out there. To me, I'm like, well, hey, that means I could have like 3 Casper Van Dien movie weekends and not run out of material. And I love that. I think that's cool, that there's just, it just proves that there's this real depth of material that has been created, is being created, and will be created. I mean, we're never going to run out. Like if we're at home bored because the next Marvel movie sucks, it's because we're not digging deep enough, because all this stuff is out there.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely is. And I think that, no matter where you are, you need to support one another. And that's why I have nothing to do with Jeepers Creepers Reborn, but I kind of took offense to somebody going, why would I watch this? Pedophiles. Right. It's like, why are you hating?
We're all in this together, man.
Yeah. It's like, I don't understand why you're hating on something, especially if you are a filmmaker. And if it's good or bad, you don't know why it's good, and you don't really know why it's bad, because okay, as a quick example, so I have 2 films, AXEMAS 1 and 2. This YouTube channel called We Watch Movies decided to, so they could make money off of it. I had no idea about this until recently. They cut all the gore out. They cut all the swearing out. They made both films, which are a half an hour, into an hour movie, and cut out the credits in between. So that means that people for the first film didn't get credit. Whoa. And this thing got destroyed in all the comments. And I'm like, why is this getting such bad reviews? Normally it gets pretty good reviews. And because I consider myself to be more commercial, so I always aim at an audience, not just like one person. And then I watched it going, oh my God, this is why. This is why everybody hates this movie. And they probably think I'm a horrible filmmaker because of it.
Right, because some pirates are trying to do some garbage.
Yeah, and I finally got them. I did a copyright strike, and they did take it down. I said, if you take it down, I'll take off the copyright strike. And they took it down, so I removed the strike. And it's like, those people probably think I'm horrible. So it's you, but of course, these are just people, I guess. And it's the same thing with anything. If it's Jeepers Creepers Reborn or Hellraiser or whatever it might be, there's reasons why things happen.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that somebody should say, oh, this sucks. Well, you got to give reasons to why you think it sucks.
Well, and it's also it's partly a numbers game. It's also partly just, it's art. At the end of the day, it's art. I can say it, and I bet a lot of other filmmakers can say it, but every film I've ever released that I've either been a director or a writer for has been, there's always somebody who's like, this is the worst movie ever made. And I'm like, but I thought it was the one that I did before, or is it the one that I'm about to do? If every single one of my movies is the worst movie ever made, like something's wrong here. To me, I'm like, I'm doing something wrong if I'm not hitting somebody hard enough that they want to say that. I cherish the 5-star reviews are great. That makes you feel good. But man, those 1-star reviews, you kind of get this perverse pleasure out of them because you're just like, man, I really I'm living rent free in your head right now. Me and my shitty movie are in your brain right now, occupying some space. And,
for AXEMAS, the very first review I got, it hurt my feelings, but now I laugh at it. It was done by a woman, and she reviewed it, and she called it an abortion.
Yeah, wow.
and I'm like, wow, what did my movie do to you? Like, wow. If you say it's bad, but why is it an abortion? I mean, that's wow.
That's how it goes. It's kind of funny, to kind of wrap it up on my end, Jeepers, when it first came out, Timo and I both, like, our Twitter accounts were just like highway assaulted. The amount of internet hate that we got was pretty intense. But over time, that changed into praise, because the haters go away. The people that like it stick around. So all you got to do is just get through that storm in the beginning, no matter how good your movie is.
Right.
The hate storm is always at the beginning, no matter how good your movie is or not. And depending on the quality of your movie, when that hate storm dissipates, the praise will start to rise up like seeds and just start sprouting.
For Jeepers Creepers Reborn, when you got that, was there at any point where, like, maybe I shouldn't do this, maybe I should just do something else?
By the time that movie came around, I'd been in the game long enough. I knew how to handle praise and criticism. Because like I said, I'd written and directed, and I even starred in a couple of my own films. Little $50,000 due-date, little micro budget movies. So I'd been doing that for about a decade prior to Jeepers Creepers. So I already knew how to let that stuff roll off my shoulders.
An old pro.
An old pro at receiving harsh criticism and the occasional praise.
Well, so then this will be the last thing. So I'll thank you for being on here and everything. Okay. And is there anything else that you would like to say? Because you do have a lot of movies out there. This isn't the only one. I mean, if people look on IMDb. So is there anything else that you would like to tell us before, any other films you'd like to promote before you?
I appreciate it. Well, like I said, Salvage Marines is it's a sci-fi series on Crackle that I did with Casper Van Dien. It's got like a military science fiction thing. And I'm in post right now with Alex Pettifer for a movie called Black Noise. It's kind of a cosmic horror military thriller. It's going to be very, very interesting. We shot it down in the Caribbean, so it's all like, beautiful locations, well lit, but total cosmic horror. It's going to be
love cosmic horror.
It's going to be it's a little art house, but I'm excited about it. So we're in post on that, and then Early next year, I'm doing Fast C. That's kind of like, so it's going to be a big departure for me because it's basically triple X, like the Vin Diesel triple X movie. It's like an extreme sports
Okay.
heist movie. Only it's a couple of extreme sports ladies. So it's jet skis and speedboats and jungle dune buggies and machine guns.
Not okay. Nice.
Which, like I said, it's a pretty radical departure from horror. But you know, I was out there on the island doing Black Noise, and we had this idea. I pitched it to the producer. They were like, "Yeah, let's do it after Christmas." So yeah, I might. Looks like I'm going to dip my toes into the action realm for the first time.
Sweet, man. You got to branch out. Got to do different things out there. So, but that's good to hear. So yeah, I'll look forward to those. So, what advice can you give anybody who wants to do this?
It's hustle and access. It's being willing to do the work, just constantly, you're constantly writing, you're constantly pitching. But I will say it is also proximity. I've never gotten a job by emailing somebody a script. Or, never, not once. I've gotten every piece of work that I didn't finance or do myself, or that I didn't produce myself. Every, gig, I guess you could say, that I got, has been through personal contact. So it's getting to know these producers and what they're looking for, getting to know them personally and developing relationships. The shotgun approach, maybe that works for some people. It's never worked for me. So for me, it's like, if you're in a place with a market like that actually has a film industry, I would be like, hey, get your script going, and then find other work in the film industry so that you're there with those people. And so let them see you being an awesome worker, and get to know the people who make the decisions. Because I would say half the time, I mean, for better or worse, like there's 1,000 really good scripts out there. These producers get handed 10 really good scripts every day. They're going to go with the one that they're going to go with. So it's a good script is assumed. They're going to go with the good script that comes from somebody they know and trust. And
so best to write and then work on films.
Yeah. Master your craft, and then work on films to get into these circles.
Yeah, because I would definitely say is to, like, out here in Vegas, we have our own film community. So there's known people out here to the horror film community. Drew Marvick, who did like Pool Party Massacre, and Joe Lujan, who did Immortal Wars. There's excuse me, a bunch of us out here. And when I made AXEMAS, I worked on another film called Scare Me, and I said, oh yeah, I made this short film called AXEMAS. All of a sudden, all those people were in AXEMAS too.
Yep.
All because I did various things on a crew. Out here in Vegas, you're unless you are to a particular like profession, unless you're a DP or you're sound, you kind of go and do, like, I'm willing to help anybody on their films. I'll do whatever you want me to do. I don't care. And so I've worked with all those people, and all those people have been on my films that I've worked on their films. And it's interesting that it was just one short film. And then I said, oh, I made this film called AXEMAS. And one of the guys on there, Tom, goes, AXEMAS? That's a cool name. Next thing you know, he's in part 2.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's getting in there, getting in the mix, getting into the game.
Yeah.
And, because like I said, I'm fortunate enough right now to be able to be a writer exclusively. That's only been in the last few years. Up until then, I'm doing production coordinating, locations. I've been an editor, I've been a VFX guy, so I've been an actor, a stuntman. So it's being involved in your community. And then eventually that lightning will strike.
How many drafts do you normally do? Or does it?
Yeah, if it's my own idea, and for myself, I'll do like maybe 2 or 3. But when I'm sitting with producers and doing development, which is a lot of my big work now, it's essentially a producer has an idea that's basically like, here's the trailer for the movie that I want. And then you have to figure out, okay, here's how I make a movie that yields a trailer like what you want. And those scripts usually go through about 18 drafts.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow.
I mean, now sometimes 18 drafts, draft 17 and 18, that's them going, make that guy's name Milo instead of Bob. Oh, okay. Now it's draft 9. Now it's draft 18. Other times it's like, hey, you know how this is taking place on the moon? Yeah. Let's make it happen in a jungle. Oh, okay.
They're the same thing.
Yeah, that's a much more significant rewrite. Or if they're like, I love the story, but we need to make these two characters into one character. You're like, okay, that's all right. I'll see you in a week.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because I've known some people who just do 2 or 3, and then some people who do 10. And it's just like, I don't know, 10 sounds a little excessive, especially if it's your own script. But
yeah, if it's my own, like I said, I'll do 2 or 3 because I know what I want. When you're working for development executives and producers, they often, they aren't the creative people, but they do know what they do. They know what they can raise money for. They know what they can sell. And so a lot of times you have to work with them to help them figure out what they want. And so that usually takes, like I said, from day one all the way up to the last frame of film we shoot has sometimes been upwards of 18 drafts. Wow. But again, the changes, sometimes they're major. Sometimes I can do a new draft in 30 minutes.
Oh, okay. There you go. All right. So that's good for writers to know then. So, okay, I'm going to let you go. And because I know you're a busy man, I've now realized that, and especially looking at IMDb. So I thank you for being here. I really do appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to the next Jeepers Creepers and whatever else you're doing. I'll definitely look out for.
Beautiful. Call me for AXEMAS 3.
Oh, okay. Yes.
I'm ready.
Yeah, it's got its little fan base, which is nice. So, but that's a whole other video.
Different video.
Yeah. So, all right. So thank you everybody for watching. I do appreciate it. And, this has been great. So this is one of my favorite One Filmmaker videos. So,
beautiful.
Yeah. So,
all
right. So see you later, everybody. And I'll talk to you on the next one. Okay. Bye.
All right. Love you well.
Bye, everybody.